Hello and welcome back to the Doomer Optimism podcast. I am here today with Kevin Ryan. Kevin is a local guy I met at a local carnival here at a parish where I went to eighth grade, a Catholic school. And Kevin is running for Senate. And I was so surprised to just meet somebody running for Senate, who's just a local guy, and I thought it was really cool, his whole approach. So first I'll just have you, Kevin, introduce yourself, and then we can talk about your plans and your run.
Sure, thanks. My name's Kevin. I am a Marine Corps veteran. I served 5 years active duty, 5 years in reserve, and also a public school teacher. I served in Afghanistan, Africa, Europe, and my last assignment was in the Pentagon. When Trump was reelected, I decided to come home and run for office because I thought um, basically that my oath compelled me to come home and serve in politics as opposed to continuing to serve in the military um, or other aspects of the federal government. So that's what I did. Came home, and I was trained to run for office by a service-oriented organization called New Politics Leadership Academy,
Mm,
and they kind of show you the playbook and give you the keys of success. And it was a little disheartening because I love that organization because they really focus on your why of why you want to run, but the playbook is what kind of disheartened me. The playbook was like spend all your time raising money, doing this thing called call time, where you just call donors and ask for money. You do
mm.
this like kind of almost from like sun up to sundown for like 80% of the campaign. And then you spend all that money on advertising towards the end of the campaign and hope to basically purchase name recognition. So when people go to vote, they see your name, remember the ad, and they choose you, much like they choose Coke or Pepsi at the grocery store. And I'm like, I don't really like that. So I thought our times are so extraordinary that if there was ever a time to think completely outside the box, it's now. And so I, as a history teacher, looked at history and I'm trying to make old as new. So I'm doing a campaign like they used to in the 19th century, one that doesn't rely on expensive ads and consultants, but instead is just going to the people myself, right? So
Mm.
Abraham Lincoln was a good example of this. When he ran for this seat in 1858, he traveled 5,000 miles across the state by mule, riverboat, and train. And that's what I'm doing in my school bus. As you can see, I'm in the back of my campaign bus that I converted into a mobile campaign office. And instead of raising and spending millions of dollars, I'm traveling across the state to all 102 counties. Happy to say that we've been to 70 so far.
Mm.
And we just meet people like you, Ashley, and it compounds and people come on board. And it's the way I think our campaign should be run. So that's what brings us here today.
Okay, cool. So, okay, a couple of things. First of all, I'll tell you a little bit about we kind of run this podcast like a conversation. So, I'll tell you a little bit about my experience with politics. When I was graduating college, it was 2007. And so Obama was like the ascendant guy. Um, and during college, I worked at this environmental organization called the League of Conservation Voters. And when I was working for them and then talking to these sort of like political establishment types, I had the same exact experience as you, which was it's basically like the campaign side is totally different from the governing side, but the campaigning side is basically just like marketing. I mean, you're just marketing a
I mean,
product.
Obama won a marketing award.
He won a marketing award and
Yeah.
and actually like Hope and Yes We Can was this crazy thing because it was sort of like you could project onto it. It didn't really matter what was going to happen with the governing side. You could just project onto it like Yes We Can and you can fill in the blank. And I realized it was really when I talked to strategists, it was really just a numbers game. It was like X number of voters are for sure going to go for Obama. So then we need to target these like swing voters, which is always like the conversation, the swing voters, and how much money can we pour into getting um, our our name in front of these voters. And I was like, God, this is just so gross. I mean, because it's really just like purchasing
Yes.
attention rather than what is actually the substance of, like, what you plan to do to when you govern, and so I kinda got disillusioned from that, especially because I sort of got hoodwinked too, and I wanted Obama to clean up, like, the financial industry, and as soon as he got into office, he did the opposite and sort of bailed him out. So I was like, you know, I got disillusioned because I just sort of thought, you can't really market your way into winning, and then your governing is based on what? Like, and then makes people distrust your campaign because what are you actually for, and what are you planning to do to govern? So let's pause. This podcast is called Doom or Optimism. So let's focus on the doom a little bit, meaning
Good.
what is the assessment of politics as is? Are you it sounds a little bit like that's still the playbook, um, of, sort of purchase your way to attention. Is that basically what's still going on? What's the assessment of the landscape?
Yes. I think that there's a book out there that I think the title of the book summarizes it best. It's worse than you think. It is bad. I mean, even I just got off the phone with an organization that is they're all about endorsing and supporting candidates that are authentic and honest, and they have these like principles that they want them to swear to. They're all very good principles that are we should have people abiding by these principles in office. Um, but even that conversation was all about, well, like, you don't have enough money. You can't run for the U.S. Senate because $100,000 isn't enough money. I'm like, $100,000 is a lot of money to someone like me,
Right.
and like, what does this money actually go to? And the answer is always advertising and name recognition. And that's kind of so like even these organizations that are like ideologically driven to reform our politics, they're playing by the same playbook. And it's just like, are we all afraid to think like innovatively? Like, because they ask me these questions about like, well, like, how are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? And I give them, here's my theory of success. You have a tested, proven model with data. I'm gathering data right now. I don't have, I don't have the results yet, but I have a hypothesis, and all I know is that we have to approach things differently because this is not working, right? So I run into that everywhere, right? And there's also this phenomenon that I've seen with first time candidates where they start off a very grassroots campaign and they're very earnest and like we need to take money out of politics, we need to do this and that, and then they gain traction and then they get noticed by a couple organizations and they start giving them some infrastructure and some help, and then they start raising money and they start raising a lot of money, and then they stop kind of saying all that stuff about raising money and money in politics. And it's like you can almost see that it's like turning these young, like beautiful minds are just like
Idealistic, yeah.
are even in real time are losing the idealism as they start to see it's within their grasp. Now it's like, wow, I actually can be a member of Congress. It's like it's there. I just have to raise a little bit more money, and then we'll get the ads
Right.
out. And yeah, so
And
yeah,
and
it's
what is it like, and I don't know if you've gotten this far, but what is the actual trade-off when you're given money? Like, what is the expectation? Is it sort of like one of those things? I mean, I'm assuming it depends on the group, but like, it's sort of my understanding is sort of pay to play. Like, if I'm going to support you, then you're going to have to support X, Y, and Z type legislation that I'm putting forward, rather than you being necessarily um a representative of the people directly. Instead, you're a representative of these organizations who give you money, who then
mhm.
determine what your voting should be like.
Right. Well, I think at first it's important to like classify two types of money. There's the grassroots money, which is good,
Mhm.
and then there's everything else. So grassroots typically is considered like $200 donations and less. Everything over $200 is like kind of like the bigger donors, and then you get to the 1,000, 2,000. The max individual contribution is $3,500. Obviously, it's hard to raise a lot of money with small donations, but like that's the way it should be, right? So we are totally grassroots campaign. We've had a couple people who donated big sums of money, but only like three or four. Most of our money is less than $200. Um, it's when you get into the mega donors that becomes a problem. Like when you, it's not really bribery because they're not expecting you to do something, but in the House of Representatives, the terms are 2 years, and they rely on this money every year. So it's more like there's a faucet on, and you need the faucet to be running in order to stay in office. And if you don't do stuff or do stuff that goes against the alignment of your donors, they'll start turning off the faucet, and then that's going to happen. And so psychologically, you're going to do whatever these people want. You could
Mhm.
also see it where, like, if you start gaining traction for like new candidates, they start gaining traction, and then like, oh, once money builds money, right? If you already have some money people will donate to you more
Momentum.
because
Yeah.
they like, okay, I want to invest in this person, because that's really what it is, and that's what they call it too. Politicians, they call them investors, right? It's
Mhm.
like they want returns on their investments, right? No one just gives money away, okay?
Yeah.
And so then people might start changing some of their messaging to try and attract some of those bigger donors. Because that's the easiest way. If you can get 100 people to donate the max $3,500, that's a lot easier, like really quicker way to get a lot of money, as opposed to relying on $5, $10, $25 donations.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
it's when you're relying on those big donors, which the majority of politicians do. There's only a handful who don't. Like AOC is a great example. Majority of her donations come from small donors, but the majority of politicians, vast majority, all their money comes from those big donors. And those big donors make up 1% of all donors. So 1% of all donors fund 80% of our campaigns.
Right.
And
Right.
so that's the problem. So now these people are spending their time with the 1%, as opposed to, doing what we're doing and driving the bus across the state and just talking to people.
Yeah. Okay. So what? A couple more points on the doom. Talk to me about this Senate seat. So it's Dick Durbin is retiring. He's been a long time senator from Illinois. Part of the reason I got out of anything related to politics is because it was just like Illinois politics. Chicago politics are so like I don't know, they're just so corrupt and there's just like so much big money in it. And it just feels like in general, we've got these machine politics. What are you up against? Is it who else is looking to run? Like, give me the landscape, the political landscape for this seat.
Well, this is a really interesting race, and it's the way that it's shaken out. It is like that we might get the Disney storybook ending that we're looking for, because of just how this thing is shaking out. So the Cook County Democrats did not endorse anyone, which is shocking. So you basically have two camps. You have Juliana Stratton, who's backed by Governor Pritzker. She's lieutenant governor. And then you have Raja Krishnamurthy, who has, at the close of last quarter, he had $21 million on hand. We've had a whole quarter now, so we'll see how much money he ends with in a couple days. And then you also have Robin Kelly. Robin Kelly is, kind of like the, I would say, on the side of Dick Durbin. Dick Durbin hasn't endorsed anyone yet, though. But because of that, there's all these very complex, fractured alliances within the Cook County Democratic Party, which paves the way for a new candidate to come in and kind of and exploit the divisiveness of the machine, because the
Mm,
machine is divided, right?
mhm.
Because you have Pritzker and his billions backing Juliana Stratton, but then also got Roger Krishnamurthy and his millions, like, advocating for himself, and then Robin Kelly is in the mix too, who went against Pritzker for the Democratic chair previously. So it's a very chaotic race, and like a lot of, like, even like labor unions and other like political organizations, they don't even know who to endorse, like some of the bigger
Mm.
ones, because they don't want to get involved. It's kind of messy. So because of that, this could be an example of chaos as a ladder, and
Mm.
it create just enough fracturing of the Cook County party to allow me to come in and exploit it, because you're only going to need like 25% of the vote to win.
Right. Okay. I'd like to hear you talk a little bit about at least your understanding of what those different candidates kind of what they represent, what factions they represent, what they're for, and how you're different from them. But I would also just like to say it seems like we're at a point in political trajectories of the US where the Democratic Party in general is kind of having a self-reflection moment. Just like who are we? How do we win again? What is our messaging? There are these different camps that, more I tend to really get along with these sort of like centrist liberals who are like, let's just have let's focus on having a functional society, functional institutions, functional schools, police, military, like safe, but thriving and competitive, etc. Um, so it is like kind of like a moment of reflection where there's like potential for, it's not like the machine candidate where it's like, oh, this is the obvious incumbent, this is
Mhm.
the one that's obviously going to win, but instead there are questions about who we are as a people, who we are as a party going forward. So I think that's good in your favor probably for this moment. And then I'm wondering, yeah, what do these different camps represent, the front runners?
I don't know. They're all the same.
Yeah.
They don't really say anything substantive. And that's kind of what I tell people, like, you know, if any one of them wins, nothing material is going to change. And that's
Right.
why, like, on my bus and on my like yard signs and my slogan, it's Kevin Ryan, Democratic change for US Senate. Because we need to change the Democratic Party, we need to change our democratic practices. And if we win, just imagine the candidate driving the school bus around, the public school teacher, veteran, union member who is able to win in the most expensive Democratic primary in American history. Imagine the
Mm.
momentum that we take with us to the U.S. Senate. And I'll take a circuitous route there. I'll drive through the red states, and I'll get AOC and Bernie to come on board with a joint resolution, and we'll canvass in those red states to get those people, to get their senators to support it. So by the time we get to D.C. with that joint resolution, we drop it in the hopper, and we can get to work on it immediately. But
Yeah.
that's the problem is, like, at these events. Well, first of all, Juliana Stratton has not been to a lot of events, so I can't really speak to her. Raja Krishnamurthy and Robin Kelly and I have all spoken at several events together, and they kind of just focus on their backgrounds and what they've done in Congress. Um, but there's not a lot of substance behind it because they kind of like stick to platitudes and generalities. And I'm like, we need more than that. We can't just have generalities and platitudes, right? We need to win elections. We need to win majorities. And what I have found with my message, not only is it the right message about like taking money out of politics, it's the winning message too. So when we go down to these red counties, I get Republicans to come back onto our side. Like union members who used to vote Democrat, who then voted Republican, are like, yeah, I can get behind this guy. I can get behind this message. It's a winning message, and so like that's what I offer. That's what like we need to focus on. And I don't know really what the other candidates really want to do besides claim the title of United States Senator.
Right. Right. And yeah, I guess just be anointed by the previous kings and be told that they're the next one coming. Okay, so I'd like to hear a little bit more about the theory. Okay, so what are you doing on the day-to-day basis? You're going and talking to people. I want to hear a little bit about how that is and what you've encountered, but then but first big picture, like, okay, so best case scenario, this campaign you're running, how does it work? How does it succeed? What's your theory about how it works?
So theory of success. So it starts with Abraham Lincoln's political mentor. He told him, make a stir or get beat. So right now we are in that phase, make a stir. The next phase is get on the ballot. The phase after that is get on the stage. So we're making a stir, right? I know that as a political nobody with no name recognition, no social media following, and no money, people are not going to take me seriously. We see it every year. There's plenty of fringe candidates who say they're running for big offices, and it's just kind of like an attention-seeking behavior, or it's something they're not serious, right?
Mm.
But by going to all the places we've gone to, by going to the 70 counties that we've gone to and talking to people, and people receiving my message that I've spent a lot of time on, they can tell that I'm serious and we're making a stir. That's why we're getting invited to these events that other candidates, other fringe candidates wouldn't get invited to. So we're making a stir. We're about to get on the ballot. So we file our nominating paperwork at the end of October, and we've already passed the threshold of signatures that we need. Now we're just getting the extra ones so that when we get challenged, we have more to get us on the ballot. All right, so then we're on the ballot. Okay, so
Wait,
we're
do you
about to.
encounter at this stage, do you encounter any like lawfare to keep you off the ballot or not
Oh
really?
yes, oh
You
yes,
Oh,
yes.
really?
Oh yes. There's a whole industry of election law where these campaigns they pay exorbitant fees for these election attorneys who will challenge your filing to try and remove signatures from the filing and get you below the threshold that you need. So the threshold's
Oh,
5,000.
okay.
And so they'll try to kick off as many signatures as they can to try to get you below that threshold, prevent you from getting on the ballot. And that's why we're going for the maximum, which is 10,000 signatures. You might
Okay.
ask, why is there a maximum? Well, I guess it makes it easier to kick someone off the ballot if there's a maximum, right?
Oh my goodness
Yeah, we
gracious.
could we
Okay.
could get we could get 15,000 signatures, but we could only submit 10, right?
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, that there's definitely some law flair. And like I was trying to get an election attorney to help us file, and these other campaigns across the state just scooped up every single firm, and the firms
Mhm.
are like they're not, they can't have conflict of interest, they can't represent multiple candidates in the same
Yep.
race, and it's just kind of like, how many election attorneys do you need for your campaign? That,
Right.
but anyway, I did
Yeah.
find
Right.
one. I
Yeah.
did find one, and I'm excited for him to help us get on the ballot. All right, so then once we get on the ballot, all right, so then the last part is to get on the stage, right? And this is what I offer to the other candidates, and this is what I offer to the people of Illinois. We all want money out of politics, right? Every Democrat says that. There's not a single Democrat who thinks that we should have unlimited spending in our campaigns. All the candidates in this
Mhm.
race advocate for campaign finance reform and overturning Citizens United. We can do that in this primary election. We can agree to spend no money on advertising voluntarily, and then instead ask the Illinois State Democratic Party to host 7 debates across the state. 7 meaningful debates, not like the ones we've had. We've had a couple of forums where you get 45 seconds or a minute to respond to a very complex question. I'm
Right.
talking meaningful debates where you get several minutes to answer and offer substantive responses. And there's great precedent for this too, because Abraham Lincoln, when he ran for this seat, offered the same thing to Stephen Douglas, the wealthy incumbent. He said, let's
Mm.
instead of following each other, let's share this canvas and let's meet at these different places and debate. And so we can meet at those same cities, which I think would be great because they often feel forgotten because they're all out of Chicago.
Right.
And so we can then open it up to debate. And if they're serious about campaign finance reform, I'm basically putting them on notice. Like, if you want to show that, like, proof is in the pudding, prove that you really care about this, you would show up to these debates and not spend money on advertising. If you want to spend money on advertising, that means you care more about your own personal political career and ambition than you do about the health of our democracy.
Mhm.
So we'll see how the candidates respond there. So one of two things happens, right? One or some of them agree to it, or none of them agree to it. And regardless of what happens, I will go to those cities, and each one of those cities has a statue of Lincoln and Douglas, and I will go stand next to Lincoln, and I will address the people there, and I will say, here I am. Where are my opponents? I'm trying to
Mhm.
have a debate. I'm trying to give the people of Illinois a race based on ideas, not dollars, but my opponents disagree. And so that is the theory of success, of that once people see what's the true thing that separates me from the others is that I am serious about campaign finance reform. I don't just talk about it. I walk the walk, and we're going to prove it in this primary.
Mm. I love that. Okay, so Um, you've been traveling around the state of Illinois. How has it been? How have you found it to be? I mean, how are the people? Are they sick of politics? Are they potentially open to some kind of reform? What have you encountered so far?
Ashley, I need a film crew to follow me. It is I've been trying to I had to give up the journaling because it wasn't fast enough. So now I'm just doing voice notes to record these experiences. But everywhere we go, every day is a new day. It's a new adventure. We have no idea what's going to happen, or what to expect, and it has been an incredible experience. We've had negative interactions with people, especially downstate, but for the most part, it's been generally positive, which is find kind of shocking with going into like deeply Republican areas with Democrat on my bus. And
Which
it
let's just be clear for people listening. If some people listening aren't like interest or aware of politics in Illinois, the senator, the spot is gonna be a Democrat. It just is that's just kinda is what it is. So it's like between Democrats we're choosing. It just Republicans senator is not gonna happen in Illinois.
right, and
So, but
that's what I tell people too. I'm like, listen, like if you want to have a say in who your senator is, vote in the Democratic primary.
yes.
because it's near. You're
It's
not going to have a
basically
say.
the just like the, New York City mayoral race that's going on right
Right.
now. The primary
Right.
is the main race. You're
Right.
not really
Right.
gonna run a Republican that's gonna, have a shot. So then your potential talking to Republican registered voters who might vote Republican in the federal elections or, presidential election might say, "Hey, I might be interested in voting in this primary because, maybe there's a more somebody who resonates with me more on the Democrat side who I could help get into office." So anyways, I continue.
Yeah, I mean that's what I mean. That I've had those incredibly positive experiences. My first time going downstate, it was just a couple days after we announced it was for the 4th of July. I went down to Springfield and I stayed in a campground just south of Springfield for 3 nights, and it was sweltering hot on the bus, but it was my favorite experience because the people I stayed next to on the campground, they live there full time, and they say like these are people whose half of their monthly income goes towards lot fees and utilities,
Mm,
and they were very conservative, like MAGA Trump people, and they were like giving me side eyes, and then they started like hollering at me as I like parked the bus about like what's with the Democrat,
yeah.
and
And it
then
says on the side of your bus,
yeah, it says
Kevin
in big
Ryan?
letters, yeah, both
Okay.
Democrat, yeah, yeah, and I was like, well, we're neighbors for the next 3 days, so we better figure this out, and but that's it was kind of that this kind of like set the tone for the campaign. So like I went out there and I took everything they said in stride, right? And I didn't just like regurgitate party line like statements. I'm not just a monolithic supporter of the Democratic Party. I'm highly critical of a lot of aspects of it, right? And I share those criticisms with them. And then I get down to the core message of the campaign, which is taking money out of politics and putting it into the working class by expanding, empowering unions and other like changing up our tax system and things like that.
Mhm.
And they're like, "Whoa, yeah, I could actually get behind that." And the most like vitriolic one who was like yelling at me when I first got there in 2 hours on the same night, then asked if she could take campaign material from me to give to people at work. And that this was like my first thing going downstate. And I
Mm,
was like, this is a very, very cool experience. And it's only compounded from that. Everywhere we go, I have like somewhat similar experiences, and it just that is what keeps me going because I get a lot of doors slammed in my face. I've had like been denied opportunities to speak by like officials in the Democratic Party in Illinois. But then I go down to these places, I meet these people, Democrats, Republicans, Independents alike. They all give me the same message that they're fed up. They feel like our democracy doesn't work for them and that the government doesn't represent them. And then they meet me and they're like, finally, like a breath of fresh air. And this is someone that I could believe in, even if I vote Republican. And
right.
so that's been like a really, really cool experience. And then there's been times when people have been, rude. Like one time a guy asked for a campaign button and I gave him the button. He maintained eye contact with me and then he threw it off to the side. And I just looked at him like I think he might have been trying to like provoke a response.
Yeah.
But I just looked at him. I said, "Is that how you were raised?" And then he went and picked it up. So,
Wow,
I,
okay.
I yeah, it's like we cannot respond like hate cannot drive out hate, right? Anger cannot drive out anger. We have to like just be like, you're better than that, right? Like so many people too, when we're in parades, they'll give me like thumbs down and I'll get off. So I ride on top of the bus during a parade. I'll get off the bus and then I go out to them and I'm like, why? You don't know who I am. Why would you give me a
Right.
thumbs down? I know you were raised better than to judge a book by its cover. Right.
Yeah.
And it embarrasses them because they know it's true. And so it kind of
Yeah.
corrects the behavior.
Oh, I love that. I mean, honestly, like, a big thing of this podcast has been, I'm a strong believer that we have a lot more in common than we
We
think,
do.
and we have a lot of, I think, in my opinion, money-driven divisiveness. And so this book, one of my favorite books on this topic is called Hate Inc. by Matt Taibbi, and basically it's like, there is a industry behind trying to make us see each other as enemies. And I'm a really strong believer that there's a huge untapped populism, that I think if somebody were to tap it in just the right way, kind of in the way that you're describing, people could see themselves as allies again. And whatever it is, that like makes sense in a particular political race, like in Illinois, the sort of facts of the case are that, it's gonna be a Democrat, so maybe find one that appeals to Republicans, whatever. In certain cases, in certain political environments, you could maybe tap into that, sort of like power of the people, the majority that are sick of not only like government overreach, but corporate overreach and feeling like nobody's really looking out for their interests. So it sounds like you're kind of going in that direction and trying to make that at least some kind of coalition happen.
Yes, that's absolutely it. Like whenever I go around to places, I tell people I consider myself a New Deal Democrat. And if we remember, the New Deal coalition was a whole bunch of people. Like, how the hell did these people agree on anything together? But that's what we need to reform our elections. Like, not like it. Our system is broken. It's
Mhm,
clear that it's broken. Money prohibits people from running for office, and it keeps those who are in office. That's plain and simple. And those with
mhm,
money control our policies because of that.
mhm.
So, like, we need to change the system, and people are fed up. They see it on both sides, and that's why I do think this is the winning issue. If the Democratic Party made this the issue instead of focusing so much on fundraising, I think we would win. I think
Mhm,
we would win, right? That
mhm.
and what better place to do that than Illinois, a safe democratic state. We're not
Right.
risking anything, right?
Right.
We're not gonna flip a seat, right?
Right.
So like that's why we need to do that here. Let's Illinois be the proving ground to show that, we can take money out of our primary elections, and then we can set the example and say, look, the Republicans truly are the party of the billionaires.
Mhm,
We reject money. We're not doing money in our primaries anymore. We would still need to use money in the general elections. That's just until we get it out completely. We can't let one side have all the money. But that's the winning issue. That's what people care about in all these places. The common theme that allows me to connect with people is that they're just as fed up as I am with the state of our government because of money.
yeah.
And I'm the fed up candidate, right? I'm a New Deal Democrat and the fed up candidate. So if you're fed up too, like join our team.
Yeah, totally. It is really interesting. I'm wondering if you wanna talk at all about your interaction with union people. So, it used to be, or it was up until very recently, and still kind of is, but is sort of flipping that the Democrats were the party of unions. They were the party of working people, and not that it totally flipped, but there was this kind of like big moment at the last Republican National Convention where the head of the Teamsters Union went and spoke. I don't think he endorsed Trump, but he at least spoke there. And there's like this weird class flipping that's happened in the past couple cycles where it feels like the Democrats are more for, the very educated class and that the Republicans are for the working people. Not that in my opinion either party are really doing much for working people.
Right.
But I wonder, yeah, if you have a sense of that history and like, yeah, I guess how to win people back. Why did they go there in the first place and how to win people back?
Sure. It's no secret that, at least in the building trades, I would say somewhere around 60% of members voted for Trump. Right,
Mm,
the union leadership has and continues to be consistently supportive of Democrats, but we have seen, especially in the building trades, um,
rank and
you know,
file.
they're
Yep.
voting Republican, and I think this happened for two reasons that came together. One is Fox News controlling the narrative on fringe issues, and then Democrats being elitist.
Mm,
So, like everywhere I go, it's crazy. I was in Palestine, Illinois, the oldest town in Illinois. I think they have like 800 people, and I walk into a dive bar or a cafe. It's what I do. I just walk into bars and cafes, doing it live, right?
yeah.
And I just introduce myself and talk to people. And the first thing that this one guy says is like, so what do you think about trans?
Mm,
And I'm like, well, like what? What about trans people? It's like, well, what do you
mhm.
think of them? I was like, do they exist? Yes. Like, what's your? See,
Yeah, what's the
they
question?
don't even have like a specific policy question. It's just almost like,
It's a culture war.
yeah, like
It's a
trans, but it's
culture
like
war.
they don't even want to peel back the layer though to see like what do you mean by trans, right?
Yeah, right.
And that's because of like Fox News just basically controlled the narrative. Democrats didn't help either, right? But Fox News really kind of like controlled the narrative on that and like made it this huge issue that it's not a issue. It doesn't affect these people's lives, right? it doesn't affect a lot of people's lives. That like allow trans people to be themselves, right? Just like I thought you were the party of like independence and like personal liberty, right?
Right, or
Um,
liberty,
uh,
yeah.
yeah. So like uh, uh, that's one issue. And then the Democrats being elitist. I think the Democratic Party has become incredibly elitist, with notable exception. Like again, AOC is a good example of like setting the example and doing real grassroots campaign. Zoran Mandami's similar to that as well. Um, but like I know a Democratic congressman pretty well, and I once asked him, what the cheapest brand of paper towel is, and he said Bounty, and I'm like, dude, that's like the most expensive brand. What? How do you do a complete 180 on that?
Yeah,
And that's just an anecdote, right? It's not like it doesn't mean anything too significant, but yeah, it's just indicative, I think, of how Democrats spend so much time in these wood-paneled private clubs with wealthy donors and not at the campgrounds, probably because they're afraid. And like, I get it. I also feel that fear too when I pull into some of these places, but I'm like, what do I have to be afraid of? I am only coming here armed with opinions, right? And ready to listen. And if you come to a place ready to listen, you should have nothing to fear. But that doesn't mean that fear doesn't exist, because people have assumptions and judgments they immediately make when they see Democrat in these towns. But that's like, this is how we win again. This is how we heal our society, right? We have to come together. And Illinois politics, I think, is a great example of this division, because like how gerrymandered our districts are. A lot of Illinois
right,
politicians don't have to contend with Republicans. They don't really need to speak with them. There's only like 2 or 3 House districts that are like kind of like less than 10-point differences, right?
right. But
And
as
and
a
so
s
they
as a running for Senate, you wanna get the majority of most number of voters you can in the whole state.
right, right. But that's all in Chicago, right? So that's where they spend most of their time. And then
Yeah,
they
yeah,
will go down to like Edwardsville and like DeCoin to like shake the right hands and kiss the right rings and say they been downstate. I don't know how many of them have been to Cairo, Illinois, or Mound City, Illinois, like I have down in Alexander and Pulaski counties, because those people down there in Cairo, they told me, this shocked me. But the first thing he said to me was, I've been living in Cairo my whole life. We have a grocery store, or sorry, we have a weed dispensary, we have a liquor store, and we have slot machines. We don't have a grocery store. We don't have a gas
yep,
station.
yep,
For 10 years, no grocery store. It costs $2 million to open a grocery store. The state of Illinois can't do that. Hell, I mean, Raja Krishnamurthy could open 10 grocery stores in Cairo right now if he just took his
right,
campaign money. And that's
right,
where we're raising money for the wrong things. We should be use that fundraising capability to crowdsource stuff for our communities, right? Instead of political campaigns. You can't eat a TV ad, you know?
right.
And that's what I mean. That's being like elitist. We don't spend time. We spend time with donors instead of the people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my assessment is basically I've said it before, but I wrote this article called The Case for Left Conservatism. And by that, I mean, there's a lot of left-wing values of like sort of protecting the vulnerable, protecting the environment, and I think like I don't know, just sort of a sense of care for those who are less than, care for the poor and sick and all of that. And then a conservative value of like, we don't want to upend all of our institutions and just kind of break everything that's functional already. Everything doesn't need to be deconstructed at all times. And so I feel like it's both the overreach of power on the government side, and the corporate side where it's really just elites, the revolving door of elites going between the two. And there's very little difference substantively between a lot of these politicians in terms of
Totally.
what they're actually working for, on a day-to-day basis. So I I applaud you for throwing your hat in the ring, because I'm now older than you and cynical, and I feel like all is lost. But I actually think it is a really cool theory of change. There's this thing that people say on Twitter, you can just do things, quote unquote, you can just do things. And you can just run for Senate. You can just run for Senate. You can try it. I mean, I have a friend on Twitter who's running for city council in Utah, and he's really big into sort of like city planning kind of things, and having a better built environment. And he's like, I'm just gonna run and see if it works. And he got past his primary and is on his way. And it's one of those things where, you know maybe somebody might say it's idealistic, but why not try? Why not
Yes.
try? And so, yeah,
Yes.
what like, sort of what are your feelings on that? Does it feel like a David and Goliath situation for you?
Oh, totally David and Goliath. And I mean, I hope, well, David won. Don't remember, or don't forget. Um, it's totally David and Goliath. And yes, maybe it's because you are a little bit older than me. I haven't fully descended into complete cynicism yet, but I'm well on
Mm,
my way. I feel it. I mean,
mm, mm,
it's like on the campaign trail, it actually increases. There's two sides. Like one, like the more people I meet within the political system, the cynicism increases. But then I meet all these beautiful, wonderful people outside of the
right.
system who believe in it. They still believe in
I
these
know,
ideals like I do.
right.
And I'm like, that this is what this is about. Um, and so, yes, it is a David and Goliath. And before I descend into complete cynicism, I'm just going to try it myself. I'm going to try it myself and do the way that I think it is possible. I see a path to victory. Like the conversation I had today with that nonprofit earlier, they lack the creativity, the temerity, the innovation to like see what can be possible. So
Mm,
on my bus, I know you can see like there's a couple people behind me. I got all these pictures up on the bus, and I put them up here because these are people who defied the status quo. Like this is Alice Paul right here over my left shoulder, leader of the Silent Sentinels and the feminist movement to get the 19th Amendment passed for the women's right to vote. And like, think about Alice Paul didn't have to go on hunger strike and get tortured in prison by the hands of the government. She could have stayed at home and had like a lovely like life as a housewife, and a mother, and just been
mm,
content with the status quo. But she said, "Screw that! I see injustice. I see a broken system, and I'm going to put everything, including my body, on the line to make the world as it should be." And so
mm,
that's why I tell people we need to stop electing people who say that's impossible. Stop electing people who lack the creativity and courage to be like, no, this is how the world could be if we made it that way. Right.
mm,
I mean, it's just like Article 5 of the Constitution exists for a reason. We're supposed to amend the Constitution, right? We
mm,
should be
mm.
driving to do that change. We shouldn't be electing people who say, no, it's impossible. We can't do that, but vote for me.
Right,
So it's
right.
like,
Yeah, vote for me for all of the exact same things that are happening now and no
yeah, the
change
status the
whatsoever.
status quo is great. Let's just
Yeah,
keep the status
which
quo, right?
basically everybody disagrees with. Yeah, and I think one thing that's really interesting about your campaign is, whether or not you succeed, the experiment that our system is set up in such a way that it is accessible to the common man. It is something that a common person, um, driven forward by the interests of fellow citizens, can get elected. And just sort of showing people and talking to people about that vision, I think is pretty revolutionary in the sense of like, just modeling that this is the way the system can function if anyone steps into the arena and tries to have it function in that way. And then to hear a little bit about you talking about um talking to people with decency, treating them with respect, asking them to treat you with respect in the process of political campaigning, I think is also a really cool and revolutionary part of your not revolutionary, I guess, revival, I should say, not a revolution, a revival of the way politics function for the vast majority of American history, which is, we're out here, we're debating the merits of the ideas. Um, I'm going to put forward to you my vision for governance, and if it resonates with more people, then I should win, rather than,
Right.
this very flat, superficial, consumeristic. I've heard of the name,
Yeah.
so therefore I'm voting for it, or like, I've projected my, values onto, yes we can, this marketing tool phrase that then, gets me to vote for the guy, but then, we don't actually even agree on any of the substance of what he's doing day to day. So like that kind of thing, I think that's really this innovation, I think, of what you're trying to do, or to bring back.
Yeah, and I think you hit it right on the head. Like when people ask me all the time, like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you running for the U.S. Senate? Why don't you run for like the Greater Water
School
Reclamation
school board or
District?
something.
Yeah, or school. Well, first of all,
Yeah,
school board doesn't pay, and I need to get paid,
I
right?
know, yeah.
I'm not independently wealthy here. I need a
Yeah,
job.
totally. I know, I know. Hmm.
And I don't think you can be a teacher too and be on the school board at the same time. But anyway, so they asked me like, why are you doing this? And I never say this out loud, but the first thing I can't control it. The first thing that pops in my head is a line from the Gettysburg Address, and it's, "I'm testing whether this nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure." Like, is
Mm,
it true? Do we truly have a government of the people, by the people, for the
mm,
people? Right?
yeah.
That's those words just always ring in my head about like, yes, I'm testing this thing that I taught to my students.
Mm,
Was I lied? Did I lie to my students? Because it feels like I did. When I taught
right.
U.S. government and politics, it feels like I taught them this is a lie. This is in fact not how our democracy works. Our democracy works is if you have tens of millions of dollars, you can pay to play.
Mhm.
Think about what's the difference between material difference between me and John Ossoff when he first ran for the U.S. Senate in Georgia.
Mm,
He came from an independently wealthy family. About $130 million is the difference between me and John Ossoff, because we're the same
mm,
age, right? I'm the same age
mm,
as he was when he first ran for office. He held no political office before that. He ran an unsuccessful campaign before, but did not have political office, right? He got to do like launch his own like video company or something because he comes from independent wealth.
mm.
I don't have that opportunity. I spent my life in service, right? But they took him seriously, and people donated to his campaign because he has $130 million. Also, because it's a contested seat, right? You want to make sure that
Yeah,
we have a
but
Democrat in
also,
Georgia.
I mean, doesn't it mean that somebody should take you more seriously, that you're not coming from this elite background, that you
Yes,
have all this money?
that's what I'm trying
Right.
to say. We have this
Yeah.
like radical authenticity because the radical authenticity is a key component of this campaign. And sorry, there's an ambulance going by
No, it's
right
okay.
here. So out here, we're out here in the
Yes.
streets, right? So the radical authenticity is a key component of this campaign, and I think that is what gets people on board because they see it. Because you see a candidate and you're like, yeah, I like that, I like this or that, I like what they're saying. But at the end of the day, we all kind of have this feeling in the back of our mind, like we know that they're all like kind of, they're all playing a game, right?
Right.
Do they really care about this or that? But they see this, and I think it's refreshing to be like, oh wow, this is this is legit. It's just he's really doing it. He's
Yeah.
just doing it. He's running for Senate, right? He's an authentic person who is walking the walk and not just talking the talk. Yeah.
So, anything else I didn't ask you, that you feel like might be worthwhile to recount about your run so far? What are the next steps? What's the timeline?
I think we covered a good amount of it. So the timeline is at the end of the month, we go through the archaic process of submitting our nomination filing paperwork. So our stack of papers is already about like this big from
Mm,
signatures, right? It's going to
mm,
be probably like this big, and they has to be bound in a very specific way. And if I don't bind it in the specific way, they can just throw out the whole thing and deny me ballot access. And this is where the election attorneys come in. So then I have to stand in line in person at 7:30 in the morning on October 27th to ensure that I get randomized ballot order. You have to be like the first one to submit. So I'll be doing that. That's the next step, to
okay.
submit our nominating paperwork. Even though we handle trillions of dollars in our economy through the internet and control our nuclear weapon systems through classified internet systems, we still need to
I
have
know. Well,
paper.
I mean, we even vote electronically, so why
Yes,
couldn't
I
you
know.
collect
Well,
signatures? Yeah.
we know the answer. The answer is to make it difficult,
Keep
right?
people off.
To
Yeah, the
keep people
ballot.
off the
Yeah.
ballot, right? Because
Yeah.
more people on the ballot, more choices. Like it dilutes the process, and God forbid people
No, we
have
can't have real
choice.
democracy.
Right, right. It's bad. It's bad for the incumbents. And
Yes.
so then after that, that's when we start our campaign to set up a series of debates. So if you or your listeners are interested in helping out the campaign, just like go to our website and you can sign up for our email list. And then when the time comes, you can just start writing letters to or emails to the three other candidates and pressuring them to accept our debate proposal.
Great.
Because that's the only way I think that we will give the people of Illinois a real choice is if we have several meaningful, substantive, publicly televised debates, level the playing field the way an election should be, right? That's how we prove that we're serious about campaign finance reform. And if people believe that, which I think they do, we will be able to pressure them to do that. If not, then I will join you, Ashley, in the
My
in the
cynicism.
depths of cynicism, and will hope. I will just leave hoping that this campaign will have at least inspired someone else to carry the
Mm.
torch and keep going forward. That's
Yeah,
why like
that's
Hunter.
I mean, I think, like, part of me thinks part of the doomer optimism thing is, there are a lot of broken parts of our society. It started this whole podcast started to talking about the environment, but politics is definitely one of them. And having somebody just kind of shoot their shot, do their best on this is like ideally, if our democracy worked how it purports to, this is what one would do. And that's what it sounds like your campaign is. And so, like, just kind of showing that that's possible to do that, to just sort of go out there, um idealistically imagining what could be possible if you actually believed, that we're this kind of government that elects people based on their merits. Um then you would do it this way. And so I wish you the best. I'm wondering whether or not if there's anyone listening who either wants to write an article, have you on their podcast, promote your work, talk to you about your vision, or also would you be interested in like a volunteer videographer, somebody who come, take
Definitely.
videos of your
Yes.
interactions with people and
Yes.
then make I can imagine there, not to just do so much, slop content or whatever, but having good content of you talking to people on the street, that is actually humanizing the other side, humanizing voters, humanizing politicians. I can imagine something really viral could come from that
Well,
as
yeah,
well.
it's not even just about my campaign. Like, I think people just need to see this just for how like humanizing it is. Like you said, like one short story. Like we were in Mendon, Illinois, in Adams County, and we stopped at this small bar to watch the Bears game. After coming back from speaking in Hancock County, and when I got there, they were like super conservative town. There was a self-avowed QAnon guy in this
Mm,
bar,
mhm.
and when they saw my bus outside, like, is that a party bus? I'm like, no, it's my campaign bus. I'm running for the U.S. Senate in the Democratic primary, and they start kind of hissing at me, and then I just get up and I grab a pack of cigarettes and my beer, and I go outside, and I hear them talking about me from inside the bar, and so I just
Mm.
and I say like, well, stop talking about me. Come out here and learn what I'm about. And then five guys got up from the bar. I'm like, oh crap.
Now I actually have to deliver on this
Yeah,
promise. Yeah.
yeah. I'm either gonna get jumped right here or but I didn't get jumped. And instead I talked to these guys and I had them sign my petition. I got
That's
them
great.
to sign on. And one key thing that was said was they were talking about labor unions. I'm pro labor, and this guy was a small business owner and entrepreneur, and he's like, I think union people are lazy. I'm like, all right, like how much do you pay your employees? It's like I pay them $20 an hour. It's like, okay, why can you pay your employees $20 an hour, but Walmart can? And like that was a line that really got through to him, and he's like, that actually makes a lot of sense. So yeah, small businesses are treated like big business, and big businesses are treated like small business, right? And just like so, that's just one example of these conversations. A guy that like thinks that Q is real was like willing to support our campaign when like we were able to break through to someone like that. And so that also is what gives me hope that like there people are very complex, and there was a lot of irredeeming qualities about this person as well, but you have to listen to people, and you just have to go to these places, and just an interaction like that I think be worthwhile for even just the entertainment value alone. It's just the story of the campaign is just cool. It's just outright
Yeah.
cool, and I would love to be able to share it in a more meaningful way than what we're already doing on social media and like promoting the campaign and stuff like that.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, if anyone listening to this has some sort of videography experience that they want to support, please get in touch with Kevin. Yeah, that sounds really cool. I mean, you and I are from this neighborhood where it's kind of mixed
Yep, yep.
politically, and it was like I always thought it was like that politics never came above neighborliness, and
Mhm.
just sort of like seeing one's humanity, and seeing the humanity in one another. So I do think that there's a way to do that and extend it to politics where you're just like, I sort of I see where you're coming from, and we might not agree on everything, but there's a couple of issues where, we absolutely agree. And even though we seem nominally opposed, like we can find that common ground. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
And
Yeah. And
I think
culturally,
it's
I think it's silly, like, how much people don't talk to each other.
I know, and I wonder, I think it might be because, I come from a pretty split family. Like, I have family members who voted for Trump, and,
Mhm.
I think Trump is an abhorrent danger to our society, but I don't love them any less, right,
Right.
for doing
And I'm
that,
sure that
and
there are things you could find in common with them.
right, right,
Some critiques of elites and some critiques
right,
of
right.
corporations, some critiques of government
Yeah.
overreach, even in the Trump era that I'm sure there are a lot of Trump voters who are unhappy with some of the actions. So, you can just find these points of common ground and see if you can
That's actually
work
a
with
great point, I think, and one of the problems with the Democratic Party is, like, this adherence to, like, we must all be on the same page, especially, like,
at
look
all
at the like,
times.
when Biden was running
Yes.
for reelection, one of the things that gave me or gives me some of the most points when I go to these conservative towns is, like, I mean, I saw Biden in person at the White House way before that, and I was like, "This guy
Yeah,
cannot run for reelection." Like,
I
and
know.
and I criticize Biden for his Afghan withdrawal, and I criticize him for trying to run for reelection.
Yeah.
And so when people are like, "Yeah, well, what about Biden?" I'm like, "Yeah, I agree with you." And like, "Oh, okay."
Yes, exactly,
And
and I think that's part of it too. I think our politics now are so in, like, such a stalemate
tribal.
that
It's like
yeah,
tribal. Yeah.
tribal, that you can't even admit, like, the slightest
Mhm.
bit of daylight on your side. This happened around the
Well,
Obama
that's precisely
administration.
what we need to do, right? And
I
that's
know, I
like,
know. I mean, the whole point of democracy is that it's not a king. It's not a king. Like,
right. Right.
you can critique them. I mean, this happened around Obama. A lot of my friends went and ended up working for his campaign and then ended up in, staffers in some capacity because it was, U Chicago around the time of Obama's election. So obviously people were precocious young political people. And I was saying, like, what is going on with this financial bailout? And they were like, well, you can't criticize Obama. I'm like, why? It's the president. This isn't a king,
Right.
we're
Right.
allowed to
Right.
say that, and I think that, like, that's almost been lost now where it's like, "Oh, I agree with Trump no matter what because I voted for him." It's like, I mean, there's I think people who are honest are like, "I'm not happy with some of these things that have happened." And same with the Democratic side, like, I'm not happy with a lot of this. So, yeah, I think that that humanizes it too, where, like, I'm able to be a full person with complicated set of viewpoints that isn't
Yeah.
just tribal and party line yes to everything. So,
Right.
um, cool. Well, this was great, Kevin. Thank you so much. Good luck with your campaign. Everybody go sign up for his newsletter. And yeah, I wish you all the best of luck out
Thank you,
there.
Ashley. It's runwithkev.com if you want to check it out. And I appreciate having me on the show, Ashley.
Great. Thanks.
All right. All right.